Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, there's so much that comes out about Scientology, and more every day. Now, don't be afraid, I'm not going to be cutting my Scientology from a Scientologist perspective. Those are still going to be coming out. I have so many articles to cover, those are not going anywhere. But I am expanding my Scientology coverage. I came across this book called Understanding Scientology. It's written by Marjorie Wakefield. It also includes chapters by Robert Kaufman and Bob Perry. Now, Marjorie Wakefield is an ex-Scientologist, and so I want to do an entire series covering this book, bit by bit, break it all down so that we get a clearer understanding of Scientology. So this is going to be the first video of this new content. We're just going to call this Understanding Scientology. So this is going to be a new segment on my channel breaking down this book, and today we're going to be starting with the preface of the book. Okay guys, so I have my phone out, I have the preface pulled up, and we're going to get into this. So this first bit starts off with Marjorie talking about a story that is very chilling. So I'm just going to read the first little bit here. It says, "It was late on a warm summer evening as I walked back to my apartment from a local university. I spent the evening there, as I frequently did, practicing on one of the pianos at the music school. I was feeling calm, peaceful, a brief reprieve from the chaos of recent events in my life. My mood quickly changed as I approached my small apartment and found the door wide open. That's impossible, I thought. I always lock the door when I leave. Having one's life threatened periodically tends to make one less careless about details like locking the door. The apartment was clearly empty, so I looked about for evidence of burglary. I was puzzled. The living room, the kitchen, the bathroom, everything seemed in place. Everything was just as I had left it a few hours earlier. Then I walked into the bedroom. I froze in horror. On the far wall by the bed, a dark red liquid had been splashed against the wall and was slowly dripping toward the floor. It was blood. The message was clear. One thought formed in my mind, pushing all others. Scientology. I thought it had to be." So that is just a very quick little attention-grabbing story. But it does set you up for exactly where she's going. She then goes on to tell us that she was in Scientology for 12 years, and she, in this preface, gives a very, very detailed accounting for how she was in Scientology. So she was in for 12 years. And she said at the end of the 12 years that she had started to question some of the practices, and that's when she was offloaded. She equates that to being excommunicated, and she thought that would be the end of everything. And she realized that that was only the beginning. She does call Scientology a cult right off the bat. She said a year and a half after she was offloaded that she realized that she had been hypnotized and brainwashed without her knowledge or consent, so that she contacted an attorney that had a reputation for taking on Scientology. She set up an appointment with him for a couple of days out because she was going to have to travel to see him. She said the very next day she was packing for the trip and she heard a knock at her door. When she opened the door, members from Flag traveled 3,000 miles to her door And she said that they knew about her call to the lawyer. She was taken from her apartment to a motel. She was held there for 3 days. Through that time, they were asking her to withdraw her lawsuit. And they said that something could happen to her. And she said, "You mean you would kill me?" And they said it would just be a smart thing to do. After arguing and resisting their psychological warfare on her for 3 days, she signed an agreement promising not to sue because she wanted to live, and they finally let her leave the motel. She said after 4 months after this incident, she contacted a second attorney, explained to that attorney the situation. That attorney said, "Come to Florida, you can still sue them. The document you signed isn't valid." Of course it's not valid. You signed it under duress. You were being held against your will. I mean, come on now. And she immediately moved to Florida and filed a civil lawsuit against the Church of Scientology. Sorry, my eye's itching like crazy. She said once she did that, the threats, stalking, and harassment almost immediately began. And they were doing this at her job, at home, over the phone, in person. Any way that they could get to her, they were getting to her. She would receive phone calls in the middle of the night. They would mention family members. Those family members would start getting mail from Scientology. They would, come to her job. They would try to harass her at work, find out which way she would leave, like which door she would leave from work. She would find her car tires flattened, deep scratches in her car, doors and stuff, like just horrible, horrible things were being done to her. She said she even called the police. They advised her there's nothing we can do. No crime has been committed. Technically, that is a crime. It's criminal mischief. There's harassment, terroristic threatening. I mean, this is just stuff off the top of my head. Damage to the vehicle, that's, criminal mischief and personal property damage, just off the top of my head there. But, and then she goes into equating it to being psychological rape, which, enduring constant harassment like that is psychologically damaging and psychologically wearing on a person. She goes in to start telling about when she got into Scientology and stuff like that. So Marjorie started Scientology when she was 18 years old, and she states that she was shy, emotionally disturbed teenager, a psychological survivor of a painful, dysfunctional family, and she had little confidence or self-esteem. This seems to be kind of a running theme. It's like Scientology kind of gets these people that have something that they are needing to fix, some problem that they can't fix elsewhere, some damage that they want to try to repair from something in their past, or some problems that they have somewhere that they're trying to fix. She said she got into Scientology within months. She was aggressive. She was a radical Scientologist, and this all came from daily hypnotic rituals and an unending barrage of propaganda from bulletins and tapes. She said she was completely indoctrinated and fiercely dedicated to the group. Again, something that is a running theme. People are quickly sucked in, quickly indoctrinated, and quickly ready to go to bat for Scientology. She said during the next 12 months that she went on a traveling tour. She went to 6 different cities. She was spreading Scientology. She was working at Scientology centers. And she even did work for the Guardian's office, which is like the precursor to like the what it's called now. But if you do enough research into Scientology, the Guardian's office was like the precursor for for what it is today. But it's like the CIA of Scientology. It's like, the information gathering center of Scientology. And she said this was the branch that did things like espionage, infiltrations, covers, plans, intelligence, and other covert operations. She said, as a Guardian's office volunteer, I once sat in on a meeting in which they planned the murders of 2 ex-Scientologist members. She said she was also given, I forgot this direct quote. They justified it on the basis of Scientology credo, the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. In other words, the ends justify the means. Sounds completely plausible to me. The way that they act now, the way that they do things now, it's completely plausible to me. Everything that they do is for the benefit of them. They do not care about anybody else but them. David Miscavige is out for David Miscavige, and he will use Scientology for his betterment. He will use people for his betterment, and if you get in his way, he will do everything he can to destroy you for his betterment. So, this does not at all surprise me. She said that she was given written policies on how to break and enter into buildings, and in Washington, D.C., she was required to break into the American Psychiatry Association and steal financial and membership records, which she did. Again, this is their constant campaign against psychiatry. Again, completely plausible. Completely there. I see this. I can see this. Marjorie also states that she was coached to perjure herself if she was called in a case involving a judge in Florida. She was going to implicate the judge in sexual misconduct for the church's betterment in the case. Luckily, she wasn't called to the stand because she was completely willing to do so for the betterment of the church. She said, after a few months of systematic program and hypnosis and indoctrination, I was operating entirely on a stimulus response basis. I would have followed any command I was given, including murder or suicide. She said, I was not alone in this. And then another ex-Scientologist wrote, shortly after I returned home, Jonestown occurred. And that did it for me. I realized that if at any point LRH had handed me a glass of poison and told me to drink it, I would have, with no questions asked and no second thoughts. That's taken from the affidavit of another ex-Scientologist. That is how deep these loyalties run. That is the amount of indoctrination that is being done. Here's a glass of poison, drink it. Without a second thought, without a question asked, they would have turned that cup up. That is a scary, scary, scary thought. After that, Marjorie goes into talking about she's left Scientology. She starts getting calls from parents whose kids are in Scientology. They've joined Scientology and they are finding out about Scientology. They have questions about Scientology. They are freaking out. And so she is talking to them about Scientology, how to try to get their kids out. But she also knows that the indoctrination is real. And she's trying to explain to them that you cannot, she says, She says, someone has taken their children, transformed them into unthinking and belligerent strangers, and filled them with bizarre ideas which defy any approach through logic and reason. Which is true. She said, don't try to reason with them. I tell the parents, it doesn't work. Gradually, the parents begin to understand their child has been kidnapped psychologically by a cult, and there's nothing that they can do. But this is America, parents tell me. This can't happen in America. Cults happen everywhere, and actually cults can happen here faster than anywhere because of the religious freedom. Somebody says, I'm a church, and they can do whatever they want. But she says after a while, the biggest problem with when somebody is indoctrinated is getting them to come out of that indoctrination. Really, the only way is for them to realize it themselves. Like, you have to present them with information in a certain manner for them to click out of it. Back then, and you can kind of tell that this was a while ago, back then they would like kidnap people and like deprogram them, which proved to be like a very bad method of doing things. And plus, you could be charged with kidnapping even if you were trying to help someone. So it was problematic, let's say it that way. It was problematic to do so. And she said after a while, parents would call less and less. You could tell that they were starting to lose hope. They were giving up because the legal system wasn't on their side, because the Church of Scientology is hiding behind the church moniker and they're religiously protected. So she moves on. She talks about it took her 10 years to write this book. She knew all along she needed to write it. But she equates it to like if you go someplace that you know is dangerous and you explore it and something kind of happens to you, like you have to kind of process everything out. You want to warn people about it, but you have to process your experience out before you can warn others about it. So it kind of took her a while to kind of process her experience out so that she could be the person that everybody needed her to be to tell her story. And she says, as trite as it may sound, if I can prevent even one other person, especially a young person, from having to live through the nightmare of Scientology, then I will feel satisfied. Which I think that is most people that are fighting against Scientology. If they can prevent at least one person from crossing that path and entering those doors, they feel they have accomplished something. She quotes Villa Appeal in Cult of America. Human beings need order. They need a framework that can account for and explain experiences, which makes us so vulnerable to cults. Cults seem to have that way, that charismatic, structured order that you need. Hence, people following Charles Manson. Hence, people going to Jonestown. Hence, Heaven's Gate. Hence, all of the cults you can ever list in your life, that is where they came from. People look back at Charles Manson today and they're like, how would anybody follow that kooky dude? But if you talk to the people that were following him, he had that charismatic way of talking to them. And when they were in it because of what he said made so much sense at the time. Jonestown, they listened to him, and everything he said had so much sense and so much meaning, and they felt like they were a better part of the world for being there. Heaven's Gate, they felt like they were doing something, they were a part of something bigger for being there. Now, Scientology, they think they're making the world better for being there. And vulnerability is the exact opportunity exploited by all the cults, especially Scientology. That's the thing. A good cult leader can pick out your vulnerability. Charles Manson could. Every single one. And every single one can pick you off. So, the antidote to a cult is education. So the more people speak, the more people talk out, the more people point out the chinks in the armor, the less people will join, the less people fall for it, and even the more people can get out of it. So that finishes up the preface for the Understanding Scientology book. The next one, we're going to hit chapter 1, see what we're going to find out. So let me see if I can pull up what chapter 1 is real quick. Chapter 1 is called From Dianetics to Scientology, the Evolution of a Cult. So, I mean, she goes through everything, man. I mean, she goes to LRH, she goes through the propaganda. I mean, we're going to cover a lot of Scientology through her book. So, we're going to cover that in addition to my regular Scientology from a Scientologist perspective. So, there's going to be a lot of Scientology. Oh, buckle up, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. In the comment section down below, let me know, what do you think of this new segment? What do you think of this book? And what do you think is going to be this new ride into Scientology? Also, look down in the description box. You can find my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and email. If you have any suggestions for new Scientology content, because I'm always looking for some, send it to me on any of those platforms. If I choose your content for a video, I will shout you out in that video. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today, and I'll see you on the next one.